What's going on, everybody? It's your guy Realistic here, and I'm doing another tutorial for SoundOracle.net. And in this video, we're gonna go over 5 ways that you can clean up your reverb right now. And this video right here was actually the winner of the poll that we did on YouTube last week. So if you're not already, be sure to subscribe. That way you can vote on the tutorials that you want to see each week. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna figure out how to clean up our reverb, and it's one of the key factors to having an overall great sounding mix. There's 2 things that can really cause a lot of muddiness. One is low end problems, and the other is issues with your reverb. And so we're gonna be focused on those issues with the reverb in this video. All right, so the first 2 tips that I'm gonna go over are tips that we go through all the time on this channel. So I'm not gonna dive too deep into them because we talk about them so much. So what I'll do is I'll leave links up top here in YouTube for you to be able to click on if you want to know more about them. So the first one that we want to do is we want to make sure that our reverb is used as a send and return rather than an insert. And the reason why, there's 3 reasons why we want to do that. The first reason here is because when we have the reverb as an insert versus a send and return, as an insert, we're going to start to lose some of the original signal as we increase the wet, so it starts to lose it, and it will thin it out, and then we'll get too much of a washy reverb. The advantage of using a send and return is what happens then is we keep the original signal intact the whole time, and we're just blending in the wet signal underneath it. So that's one reason. Another reason is it saves big time on CPU, especially if you're planning on using this same reverb on a few different tracks like I did here. And so the reason why is because now you can send a bunch of tracks to this reverb instead of having to throw this reverb on several channels and eating up your CPU. The last reason, and it's a big part for this video that we're doing, you can see on my reverb channel here, I have effects before the reverb, and I'm going to have effects after the reverb. So if we were to throw this as an insert, all these effects would be affecting the original signal as well, and we don't want that. We want to be able to have these just control the reverb before and after, and so that's what we're going to be doing, is we're going to be mixing the reverb as if it's a whole separate channel, which it is. All right, so the other thing that we talk about a lot on the channel that I'll just go over real quick here is we're going to sync our pre-delay and our decay times to the BPM. I got so many videos on that, so if you want, you can watch a video on that right here, and it goes fully in depth on what that is, but I'll just break it down. Basically, if you don't have a reverb that allows you to sync it to your BPM like this one does here, you can do a quick math equation here, and the math equation is 7,500 divided by the BPM. 7,500 is just a quicker way than 60,000. You get the same results, but less dividing. So this is going to bring us right to a 30-second note, and so you would type that into your pre-delay if it doesn't allow you to sync it in there. Now, as far as the decay time, I'm going to want that to be either a 16th note or an 8th note. So a 16th note, you would just times by 2. For this particular track, I'm actually going to want this to be a 8th note. I want a little bit longer. So we're going to take this value right here, and we're going to type that into the decay time right here. And so now our decay time is going to end on 8th notes, and then our pre-delay, the reverb, is going to start on 32nd notes. So that's going to reduce a lot of muddiness and clean up your reverb, because now it's in sync with the BPM of the track. So it's got a consistent start time and a consistent end time, and it's not clashing so much with other things that are happening as far as the timing of the track goes. All right, so those 2 things, like I said, we go through those a lot, and so I just wanted to go through that real quick, and now we'll dive into the other things that we can do. So I have my reverb channel here, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw on an EQ, and you'll notice here that I'm putting the EQ before the reverb. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to filter out some stuff in the low end, and I'm going to filter out some stuff in the high end. And the reason why I have this before the reverb is because I don't even want these frequencies to touch the reverb. I want to remove these frequencies before the reverb is even applied, especially when it comes to this low end. A lot of times we don't want the reverb to even touch the low end. That can cause a lot of rumble and a lot of clashing and muddiness. So we'll just remove that. And then what I'm doing is I'm also getting rid of just a little bit of the highs, not too much of them, but what I really want is I want the lead vocal, the dry signal here, to really be able to shine as far as the highs. So I'm just gonna remove some of that a little bit so that it doesn't get into the reverb here. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and hit play, and then I'll bypass in and out so you can hear.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving out my spirit tonight. I am stumbling through the skyway.
Just cleans the reverb up a little bit. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw a de-esser on the before the reverb here, and I do have de-essers on the original track, and I'm a little bit more subtle with them on the original track. On the reverb channel, I'm gonna be a little bit more aggressive, and the reason why we're putting de-esser on the reverb track is you'll notice a lot of times when it comes to reverb, they can be a little too extra when it comes to sibilants, and so a lot of times they'll emphasize them too much, or they'll make them splashy, or they'll make them even harsher. So I try to tame those down before they even hit the reverb. And so you'll notice that I have more of an aggressive threshold and range that I normally would on a regular dry track, and that's because I'm really trying to push these down. So I'll show you, you'll see over here on the meter, it's going to really reduce this by a lot.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving.
And now let me bypass this so you can hear a little bit of the difference.
I see stars are moving sideways.
And then with it,
I see stars are moving sideways.
so just kind of tames it down a little bit, because again, the reverb is really going to emphasize that quite a bit, and so we just want to get rid of that before it hits the reverb. All right, so I got this next plugin. We're actually going to come back to this towards the end, because this plugin right here isn't so much going to make it cleaner, but it's going to just add a little bit more excitement. So let's focus right now on the tactics to make this reverb cleaner. So what I'm going to do now is, after the reverb, I'm going to throw on a compressor, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to have this as a sidechain compressor. And so what's happening here is the key input is the vocal channel. So I got the vocal sent here to the compressor, and it telling the compressor that the external source is going to control it. And so what's happening now is every time the original vocal is going to be performed, it's going to push the reverb down a little bit. And then when the vocal stops, it's going to allow the reverb to expand up. Now you may be wondering, what is the difference between this and the pre-delay? Well, the difference between this and what's going on is the pre-delay, we're setting it to a certain time, right? And so the vocal is going to be delayed by a 30-second note. Well, the performer might not always stop on a 30-second note. It might stop on an 8th note or a 16th note or a quarter note. And so that's one reason. And another reason is I don't want to stop the reverb. I just want to lower the reverb a little bit in volume. And so that's what this is going to allow us to do. We're going to be able to push the reverb down a little bit as the vocal is performing. And then when the vocal is not performing, like we got this little space right here, and when it's not performing, it's going to allow the reverb to expand up, and so we can enjoy that a little bit. And so what this is also going to do is it's going to allow more room for the lead vocal, and since the lead vocal and the reverb aren't going full blast together at the same time, it's going to reduce some muddiness and clean some things up, because it's lowering the reverb a little bit and getting it out of the way for the lead vocal to shine. Usually what I do is I'll sync this to the BPM of the track, which I already did there. And so again, what you do is just you take 7,500 divided by the BPM. And for this one right here, I would actually put the attack and release to a 64th note. And so we would just type those values in. What you see, I have that typed in already. Pretty fast attack, pretty fast release. And then what I'm going to try to do with the threshold is I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive with it and try to reduce it by about 5 to 6 dB. All right, so let's check out what this sounds like so you can hear what I'm talking about.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving out my.
And let's go ahead and solo the vocal track so you can hear this a little bit better. What I'll do is I'll bypass it, and then I'll bring it in so you can really hear what it's doing.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving up my spirit tonight. I am stumbling through the skyway. Dancing through them, I don't stop. No more room for the teardrop.
So you can hear it just kind of pushes it down a little bit, allows the vocal to have a little bit more breathing room, but then we can still enjoy the reverb as far as when we have these little openings here. It kind of just opens it up. And it also kind of makes it sound a little bit more musical because now we've introduced some type of new dynamics to the reverb and a little bit more of a rhythmic feel to it too. So it just really makes it feel more cohesive with the track here. All right, so then the next thing that we're going to do, we'll come back to this skipped little space, is I'm going to filter out some lows again because now that we've added the reverb might introduce some low end information that we want to get rid of. So we want to get rid of some of that rumble. And then sometimes, not always, but sometimes I may EQ out some of the mid range just in case I hear a little bit. On this particular track I did. I'll show you what I was hearing. I'll boost this.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving out my spirit tonight.
So it's just a sound that I might want to just tame down a little bit, maybe just reduce that by 2.5 dB. So I'll bypass this and I'll bring it in so that way you can hear what this is doing.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving out my spirit tonight. I am stumbling through the sky.
You can hear how that's really cleaning up the reverb. It almost makes it seem brighter, and we didn't boost anything yet. We're just kind of reducing things, but that's because we're getting some of that mud out of the way. All right, and then the next thing I'll do here is, again, this is something that I might not do on every track, but for this particular one I want to, just because I just want to add a little bit more energy to the reverb, is I'm going to boost some of the highs here, but I'm going to boost like the high highs. I'm not going to really boost this area because I want to leave that for the vocals. So I'm going to boost 20K and above, an area that we almost can, we barely can't even hear that as humans. But I just kind of want to add a little bit more shimmer and sparkle to the reverb. So let's bypass and bring that in.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving out my spirit tonight. I am stuck.
So again, just adds a little bit more shimmer to that reverb and just kind of, again, makes it sound overall cleaner. All right, so those are all my tips to make your reverb cleaner. Now I'm going to show you a little something to add a little bit more excitement to your reverb, a little bit more energy. And I got this distortion plugin, and there's two options that you can go with this. You can put it before the reverb, or you could put it after the reverb. If you put it before the reverb, we're going to distort this original signal before it even hits the reverb, so it's going to go into the reverb distorted a little bit. If we put it after the reverb, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be distorting the reverb a little bit. And on this particular track, I actually think distorting the reverb afterwards would be better than beforehand. I'll show you beforehand so you can kind of hear. It's just going to add a little bit more energy to what's going into it.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving out my spirit tonight.
So that vocal just has a little bit more energy to it. But now let me show you what it sounds like with the reverb afterwards. Again, I'll bypass and then I'll bring it in.
I see stars are moving sideways. Got a feeling in me moving out my spirit tonight. I am stumbling through the skyway. Dancing through them, I don't stop. No more room for the teardrops.
So you can hear that distortion's doing something pretty cool with the reverb. We're definitely getting a little bit more energy and more sizzle to it, a little bit more sparkle. And I'm not going too crazy here. I'm just driving it up by about 20%. And then over here, I'm kind of cutting out some of the lows, a little bit of the highs, just because I don't want to distort any of that area. And I chose a little bit brighter of a tone. But yeah, that's just a way to add a little bit more energy to your reverb. And all of these tips right here should really help your reverb improve. They should sound a lot cleaner, and I think that you'll have a better overall sounding mix with these techniques. Hey, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel right here so you can catch the latest tutorials on mixing, mastering, and production. And you can check out some of our suggested videos here, here, and here. And, of course, if you're looking for premium loops and samples, you can find that at SoundOracle.net. We got plenty to choose from.